Hello and welcome to the mixtapes. I am your co-host, Amber, joined by my lovely co-host, Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, Amber.
All right. Well, welcome back, listeners. We're going to get started on our next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Nikki, what is good? Tell me something good.
Okay, so something good is that I went to a new moon circle over the weekend.
Okay.
And it was really, really lovely. And I feel super connected to this group of women and also my spiritual side right now. So that's something good for me. What's something good for you?
Something good. I'm going to bring up my hair again because it was something that I brought up the last time we recorded a session. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm trying to embrace it. But truth was, I was not. I was really actually feeling pretty uncomfortable. And it wasn't until somebody was like, hey, record this video saying this. And I was just like, I blurted out, I just don't feel pretty. And so it's okay. I mean, I had to unpack that. And I decided that I was like, okay, here's what I do like. Here's what I have control over. I know how to do hair. I know how to do my own hair, so I can do this. And I did buy some hair to like braid my hair again because I definitely keep my hair in braids. That's comforting for me. Keeping up with natural hair, I know if our listeners have natural hair, is a lot of work. Every night you have to do something, and sometimes I don't have the bandwidth for that. So that's also probably why I wasn't loving it. But I tried it. I'm proud of myself for trying again, and that's with my something good. It's like, no, I'm gonna try this again. So that's what we're doing. We're trying
I'm proud
it
of
again.
you
Thank you.
for trying again.
Alrighty. Well, I definitely want to hear more about this moon circle. So, do you feel like sharing with our listeners your experience?
Yes, yes, I do. I do. It was transformational. I mean, I think where to start. Like, and in the context of this podcast, there's also like very specific things that I think will resonate with folks and others that might not. So I just want to be clear about that. But if you don't know, do you know what a moon circle is?
Do not. You know what? Honestly, I've heard of them, but I don't know like ins and outs of it. I would love to learn more about a moon circle.
Yeah. So basically, and I asked that because I didn't want to over explain something that you might know. But
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically the moon has, 4 phases or whatever, but every other week, and I don't know if it's between the waning and the waxing and whatnot. I don't know that. But there's new moons and then there's full moons. So twice a month, there's one of those two things is happening.
Right.
So there's a new moon every single month. There's a full moon every single month. And so the new moon is always in the astrological sign that is currently happening in that season. So for example, this new moon that just happened was in Pisces and it's Pisces season. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then the full moon is in whatever sign is the opposite of that sign. And I don't know what the opposite sign of Pisces is, so I can't tell you that. It's the opposite sign of whichever sign is like that month's theme. And the purpose of a moon circle, so the full moon is a time for deep like reflection and like looking inward and like just kind of going like looking at the goals that you may have set during a new moon and like, did these manifest? If so, why? If not, what do I need to do different next time? What can I be grateful for? That's kind of the energy of a full moon. And then a new moon is setting the seeds, setting intentions. So I really want over the next 2 weeks to get a new job or cut my hair or, go on a date, whatever it is that you're manifesting. Like the new moon is the best time to do that because of the way that the energy is. So moon circles are like sacred practice that they're ancient. It's an ancient practice where women have gathered together and you essentially have a discussion based on the themes of that moon. So taking into the fact that it's a new moon or a full moon, that's the first thing you do. Then you take into effect what astrological sign it's in, because each sign has a different like theme, values, characteristics to it. In the same way that I'm a Gemini and that has specific traits. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So as women, we gather in a circle and the facilitator will typically have like a set list of questions, either to journal or to share out loud that have to do with that specific moon. So for example, if you are the new moon in Pisces is really about like connecting to your spiritual side and your spiritual practices and your connection to divine. So a question that the facilitator might ask is like, what is something you're going to do in the next 2 weeks to recenter yourself in relation to spirit. Does that make sense?
Oh,
So
yes, it
yeah,
makes
and
sense.
then you go around as a group of women and you all answer, and there's just like so much space for like community and conversation, and like the ladies give each other advice and whatnot, and it's just really like a community. And then sometimes, like depending on where you go, they might do Reiki or they might do a meditation or some sound healing. And the gal that I go to, she does sound healing and meditations as well. So yeah, so we went into this meditation, and something I've been thinking about for a while, but I haven't had the words to describe it, is really want to combine my spiritual connections to activism. And I haven't been able to figure out how to do that, especially with women, just in the society and the era that we're in right now. This is such an important time for us as women to like stand up and resist what's happening, to us and not let it get to us. But also, I think about womanhood and matriarchy, and that's like the cultural component of it, of like, we're in our culture is like women are like the leaders and we are the builders and the architectures, and we make the community, we make everything, we nurture everything. And how can we do that with our divine rage? How can we channel our rage until, you know what I
I
mean?
love that. A lot of what you were saying actually resonated with me as far as for the new moons. And I'm so glad that we were able to break that down for our listeners. Between the new moon and the full moon, I have a tattoo actually that says live by the sun, love by the moon.
Oh,
Or yes, or love by the sun, live by the moon. Sorry. I need to get back on track with this. And so I'm so grateful that we're talking about this, especially with like, setting intentions. I used to on a new moon write intentions or like, kind of goals or aspirations on wish paper and then send it up into the universe. And so I definitely need to get back on that because it definitely is a really great practice. And I love that this moon circle allows you to come back together with others and reflect on, how did that last cycle go? And also just be aware. I love hearing about, those different phases that we're in. I know that I also learned yesterday that Aries is in retrograde. I don't know if that means that's the opposite of Pisces, but I'm a Pisces. So I'm loving the Pisces moon, but I'm also experiencing a lot of that, this current retrograde right now. I learned that, it started on March 1st and there's a lot of like, kind of like there's communication breakdowns, not feeling wholly confident in, in certain waves, and also, just dealing with conflicts in the world. I think people around you might see more conflicts than normal, because of this retrograde that I think is supposed to last until like April. So
There's like 4 planets in retrograde right now.
yes,
So
there, see, 4 more than I knew about.
yeah.
But yeah, there was a crazy stuff going on last week or so. And somebody was like, well, and I was just, that makes so much sense to me. And I just really appreciated that perspective. So I'm glad that we're discussing this today.
Yep. Same. And also happy Pisces season. I always forget you're a Pisces and I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah.
I'm a Pisces rising. Can you tell the listeners when's your birthday?
My birthday is actually next Friday, March 14th.
March
Yay.
14th,
Yeah.
HBD. Any goals for your birthday?
Some goals. Let's see.
Like
I would say I'm turning 42.
42.
I know it's crazy to me. I definitely don't feel I'm 18, but I still feel I'm that young. You're as young as you feel, right? So I guess the goals for my birthday would be to just continue to embrace another year. I do want to set some intentions as I'm about to like, do another journey around the sun. And so I think I might be mindful and reflect on how has this past year gone. I will definitely be doing some wish paper. I will probably be reading my cards. My husband's birthday is actually the day after mine. So we usually celebrate our birthdays together. We'll do combined little things. So I think I'll talk to him this weekend about our birthdays. Obviously, we both know they're coming up, but what's our plan? How do we want to celebrate? We like to get a special dessert that we don't normally get. And I think we've been doing that since we were dating. So yeah, it's our little tradition to just celebrate together and be glad for another year together and also, birthdays.
I love that. I love that you
Yeah.
share that. I didn't know that about you guys. I remember knowing he was also a Pisces, but I didn't make the That's awesome. That's awesome. I was like looking through my journal as we were talking because I went to a webinar in the beginning of the year that talked about the planets. So I just wanted to see if I had it to tell you what the 4 planets are.
Okay.
Looking for it. Let's see if I can find it. But it was this woman, Jessica Lenato, and she's my favorite astrologer. She has a podcast called Ghost of a Podcast called, and it's really good. And she did a session with Dean Spade, who's the author of Mutual Aid. That guy, I was talking about him actually in the last episode. I was reading his book, and they did it together to talk about like astrology of the year and like activism. And I found it, so I just wanted to tell you what the things were. So it's Neptune that's in Aries, and it will stay that way until 2029.
Okay.
And the last time it was in there was the Civil War and abolition, the abolitionist movement. There was another one, let's see, Saturn is also in Aries from 2025 to 2028. And the last time that it was in Aries was the Civil Rights Movement. So again,
Interesting.
And then there was another one that I don't think I wrote down. Pluto's doing something. I just wrote Pluto.
Something with something over there.
Yeah, and it's impacting the USA, Mexico, Canada, Russia, and North Korea, which is interesting. But
that is very fitting for the times right now. That's
but anyway,
interesting.
So I'm jumping all over. Sorry about my story about the moon circle, but the point I was trying to get to, and what I wanted to talk about is there were so many things that happened in that space that was just divine timing. And one of them was I was sharing with the group about how, and we'll talk about our cards, and we're going to talk about them later, but how I have this card, this deck, it's called Secrets of Paradise, inspired by Caribbean and Latin American culture and mysticism. And in this deck, there's multiple cards that are Taino in reference. And when I did my DNA testing, it turns out I'm a very small percentage Taino. And Taino is an indigenous tribe to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And I was telling them about this in the group, and 2 other women there are also Taino.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that.
So it was a really cool connection, and we were just dying because there's so much, the sacred, again, back to the sacred indigeneity piece that we want to unpack together about practices that Taino people traditionally did. So
that's such a beautiful connection that you were able to find. I guess it's if it's a small percentage for you, it might be, is it a small percentage for the other 2 women that you met? Yeah.
One was actually kind of high, and we were surprised by it. She was, I'm around 5 to 30, which is pretty. So the tribe is essentially gone.
Yeah.
For the most part, I shouldn't say essentially gone because we're still here, obviously. But there's not a lot of people who claim 100% Taino heritage at all. So, and then there was the other woman was also same as me, very low percent, and they were both Puerto Rican, so that was interesting too. So they weren't Dominican.
You should definitely look into, more about, that tribe. And since you said, there's only a few of you really here that, that it would be important to, bring that back and bring it, honor their traditions and their beliefs and their practices and their ways. And, we talked about this on our first podcast. You are your ancestors' wildest dreams. And how are you trying to be a good ancestor? And I think one way is to truly learn about, our history and culture and, honor what they did. And I think there's so much to learn from the wisdom of our ancestors, but also what can we leave behind for our future generations?
1,000%. And I'm not going to claim to be native. I'm definitely not indigenous, but I just want that disclaimer out there. But there is something to be said about valuing, our indigeneity in some way.
Yes, and definitely in honoring it and respecting the history and the culture. And, teaching others, if, depending on what you do learn, I'd be more than willing to hear what you have to share in your journey of, just uncovering what, your ancestors have left behind.
Thank you. Thank you. And so she led us into this meditation, and I was talking about the ancestor piece and how that's top of mind right now. Is one of my intentions is being a good ancestor and leaning on my ancestors more. And she led us into this meditation, and I am looking back at my notes because I want to remember what I felt. But the biggest takeaways for me was I had this vision while I was meditating that like I was being held, like physically somebody was behind me, almost kind of like I was like leaning back into them. And it was a green like goddess. And I've seen her before in meditations, but I never could like connect who she is. I just like feel I'm being held by this like green entity. And I just kept feeling my ancestors around me. And I kept getting this message of like, I was visualizing axe throwing. Have you ever been axe throwing?
No, I have not.
Okay, we should go. Next time we see each other, we should go. But
That, yes.
you know what it is though, right? Like you're like during that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I just kept picturing a bunch of women throwing axes, like axe throwing and like screaming. And it was this just crazy image of like women just throwing these axes and then like cheering each other on. And it just like made me feel it was, so that's the way to like channel that like sacred. I just kept thinking about sacred feminine rage and how like our rage and like being angry is something that like the patriarchy has stolen from us and white supremacy has definitely stolen from us. The ability to be angry and to have feelings, right? But that is like an inherently sacred feminine trait that they try to make us feel isn't, and then it's a masculine thing, you know? And I don't know, I just was thinking about how that could be maybe something I could do, a retreat with women and a way to channel their anger and their sacred femininity into creating a better place for the world, as we are the nurturers of society. And it is our sacred womanhood and our matriarchy that's going to get us out of the years and years of oppression. So that was just probably.
Yes. I love this. And especially during Women's History Month, what a fitting, just mission and, journey that you're on. Women are badasses. I love that word. But we are powerful. We are powerful, and we can definitely make an influence. I think it's a big part of both of our identities is womanhood. And that we haven't really talked enough about yet. So I'm glad that, once again, we're having these really great conversations about identity. I know we started this podcast to talk about, racial identity and being multiracial and being, in interracial relationships or marriage or however that looks. But I think identity in general, especially womanhood, especially the women that came before us, as women of color, the women that have paved the way for us to even be doing the things that we're doing. I want to honor them in everything that we do, constantly. So I just think that, and I just want to keep moving us forward in those ways. And just, I don't know, I just really respect and appreciate womanhood and all that it has to offer for us and the experiences, even the pain and, the heartache that comes with it. I think it's all just part of a greater, beautiful plan. And look how far it's gotten us. So I think let's just keep riding that wave, or I guess, so to speak.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Like, and yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like because of like white womanhood and like what that has become and like always historically been, I feel like there have been times in my life where I've swayed away from like women's rights or women's like journeys because I've just been so like I can't really vibe with this, or I can't really trust these white women. So I've just turned more to like other causes. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But there's
absolutely.
something about like just the recent shift in the times in general that's like bringing me more to like craving that like energy around me. You know what I mean? And like obviously intersectionality is like just the word here. I don't know. Like, and I feel like I'm actually seeing an increase in white women doing the thing that they're supposed to do, like that, like I would want them to do. Does that make sense?
No, I would agree. Actually, I wouldn't say it's anywhere near where I would love it to be.
Mm-mm.
And I think I saw something it was asking like people of color, most specifically women of color, do they feel like, who would they feel safe with in the room or like in a job setting, like a white woman or a white man? And a lot of them were like, they feel safer with a white male because there is this level of distrust and harm that has been done within, white womanhood to kind of, in my personal experience and what I've observed, to overcast or cast down more specifically, or just, I don't know, hold back. I'm trying to find the right word, but women of color. And I think some of that comes from, this superiority complex. Some of it comes from jealousy. Some of it comes from misunderstanding. So, there's just so much that it could, different angles that it can come from. And I totally hear you when you say, kind of put that to the side a little bit and focus on other issues, just womanhood, because of who womanhood encompasses,
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that.
The jealousy thing, I think, that's always my intuitive thought when it comes to that. Like, I think about white women in the workplace, especially mentioned. Like, to me, it always feels like this person isn't giving me the respect I need because they're jealous of me. Like, and not that I'm like all that in a bag of chips, but it's just, you can just tell. It's almost like a threat. It's like, by entering this workforce, like, I'm a threat to you in a way that I'm not a threat to this white man. And so I know that this white man doesn't see me as a threat. So therefore he's going to support me. And of course, not all the time and blindly and
Right.
whatever. Like, but it's just different. Versus sometimes with white women, it feels like it's like they feel like they're in competition. And I'm like, girl, like, chill. I didn't come here to take your job.
Well, no, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love to do more research about this, but something I recently heard was that it was actually Black women that started the kind of the women's, right to vote and the suffrage movement, and white women took that from them. And you're shaking your head, yeah. So I'm like, okay, so that is like
100%.
something
That's
that's
what happened.
true. And I think there's a lot of historical events that actually have happened, in that capacity. So I do think that there's like definitely reason for I love that level of mistrust. I think that I appreciate when we can find allies in white women, because then I'm like, hey, it feels like a sisterhood. We can actually have a friendship in this, or an allyship, and they could actually take the time to truly get to know what, or at least understand or begin to understand what our lived experiences as women of color, or even biracial women of color. So I just think, it would just be appreciated if can continue to move forward as women,
Yeah.
collectively. And it's helpful to see when we do those moments and those glimpses of when we all do truly come together. That was not the case during this recent election. And I think that hurt my heart,
Yeah.
a lot. I was really feeling hopeful that women were going to show up, not Black women, not like, you know what I mean, but women.
Mm-hmm.
I really was hopeful that women were going to show up, especially when, reproductive rights and just what we do with our bodies was at stake. And I was alarmed to see how many people, women specifically, do not want us to have our own choice in that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Amen.
just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I feel like the historical context of like women's suffrage ties in actually super well to the fact that 93% of Black women voted for Kamala, and it was like 50-50 with white women. So, and you brought up again, I want to go back to the suffrage point because that blew my mind when I learned that. I was in a college course on women's history, and essentially, yeah, it was started by Black women, and then the white women kind of took it over. But not only did they take it over, they also gave it up. I mean, they also gave up abolition. So it's like the white, like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and all of those ladies, they were also abolitionists at the time. And then they were working with Frederick Douglass, and they were like really in it and like, trying to stick up for the end to slavery. But then there was a bunch of white, rich political men who were like, ladies, if you want the right to vote, you're going to have to ditch the Black people and ditch abolition and just come, just do your own thing and we'll get you the right to vote. We'd rather have you voting than have Black people be free. And so they did. They ditched abolition. And that's crazy, but also not crazy. I shouldn't say the word crazy because that makes it seem like it's rare or something. And actually, this is historically accurate, right? And repetition of pattern, and
Exactly.
repeated behavior from white women.
I would say it's disappointing.
It is. It is. And oh my God, with the abortion thing, yeah. Because they don't see it as as healthcare. They don't see it as they see it as this whole valuing life thing and like, I'm a woman, therefore I support the unborn. It's just, girl, be so fucking for real. What are you gonna, you know what I mean? It's you'd rather have another woman have a child she doesn't want, and then that kid grows up in like a bad situation And you don't care about that. Like, it's, they just like the whole, like, we care about life, but not really. Like, you don't really fucking care.
If you cared about life, I could say a lot on this, but why are there so many children in the foster care system?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, then adopt or foster or, teach or, there's so many things that can show that you value life and that you value children, but you really don't. You just want control. I feel like it's really just control. Um, and it is aggravating beyond words when people try to explain, well, it's just life and it's, you're taking away life. And it's like, do you know this person's situation? Do you know this person's experience? At the end of the day, I just wanted to, me personally, and I know that you probably agree with me, I want it to be our choice. We teach kids this. As a school leader and educator, I teach children my body, my choice.
Mm-hmm.
That goes for everything. It's, consent is real.
Yeah.
You should have autonomy to do what you want with your body. You should have the right to love and be with whoever you want to be with. You should have the right to identify with how you want to identify in this world, how you want to show up. You should have that right because it's just basic human need. The right. It's just basic human rights. And as long as it's not like significantly harming other people to an extreme amount, then why is it even any of your concern?
Control.
It is. It's control. It's always about control. And at the end of the day, it's about control and money. The whole reason why we need people is to work to make corporations money. So everything's connected. It's all about control and everything's connected. And it's just dizzying sometimes.
Yeah, no, for real.
The level of just oppression and control, and it's just I'm baffled right now because it's just like, where is this? I was watching a glimpse of the, State of the Union, and it was a room full of, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I just couldn't look away when I was on TV because I was like, this is weird. It was a room full of white. I mean, there was some people of color, I would say a sprinkle of them, in the sprinkling of, Democrats who like were not on board with any of this that, Trump was saying. But every time he said like a sentence, people would stand up, cheer and clap. And I know that's part of like the State of the Union, that particular process. But it was like what he was saying that they were clapping about. And it was just like he said something about wokeness. And he was like, America will no longer be woke, or like like he was like really bragging on like how he, cracked down on DEI and, we won't be woke here. And I was just like, and they were clapping and cheering. And it was so white. It was so white. And I was just like, what is this? Like, where are we? This is 2025. Our ancestors, to bring them back again, fought so hard. And why are we here? Like, what? I was just like, is this reality? Like, this is the world we live in. And it was like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to do. And I know that people I'm surrounded by are going to keep doing what we're going to do. So you can crack down on DEI all day. I don't care. I'm still going to be hired. I'm still going to get a job. You know what I mean? And I'm still going to advocate for everyone.
There's so much to say at what you just said. I'm pulling something up that I just saw that Bernie Sanders came out with yesterday. Just so much. It's like how you're feeling is so real and valid. I need to say that. Like, I guess Bernie did an interview or something. I don't know where this came from, but this is a screenshot. And it says, he said, at this particular moment in history, despair is not an option. Giving up is not acceptable, and none of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. I like printed that out, and this is Bernie. I printed it out and put it in my office right in front of my desk, so I have to look up and see it when things get hard. But I went to a college class my friend teaches earlier in the week and did a guest lecture / co-taught class. And they're all learning to be teachers. So it's a curriculum and instruction class. And I was sharing with them the levels of, I just talked about what is DEI? What do I do at work? Like, what does DEI look like at a school? What is an equity audit? All those things. And we talked about the backlash against DEI. And students it was a couple hours after they launched that portal where you can report DEI in schools, which is just fucking crazy. And at the end of class, so we looked at hypothetical schools we looked at the pristine school, the school that is doing culturally responsive and anti-racist pedagogy. It's totally decolonized. It's perfect, right? And we looked at it as a case study. And a student asked a question and she was like, this sounds great and all, but do schools like this really exist? And it took me a second. Till I was, that's a good question. And she was like, is this real? Like, does this actually happen at schools? And all I could think about was there wouldn't be this backlash against DEI if it wasn't working. Like, it's working. It's not working fantastically. There's still hella racism in schools and inequity and all of the isms and oppression is still occurring in schools 100%. But progress is being made. And because that progress is being made, they're trying to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
So it's like, that's almost proof, as hard as it is for it to happen, and it's incredibly dangerous and harmful. It is proof that these places do exist, or at least we're almost there. We're on the cusp. So
I think that, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just absolutely, when there is a threat to the people in control or who think that they're in control, when they feel threatened, they're going to ramp up their efforts and they're weaponizing things that they feel are going to impact who's now becoming the majority, more and more. They're making all these decisions that they hope will cause harm. That's why I'm saying that's not going to shake me. Yes, it's upsetting. Yes, it angers me, but I'm still going to do what I do. And you're still going to do what you do, and we're still going to fight and we're still going to push back. I'm going to conform because you're upset about this. I'm not going to conform and change who I am or shrink into my identity or, hide who I am. Hell no, I'm here. Get used to it. We're here and get used to it. And I'm going to merit-based hiring or DEI, whatever you want to do. I'm still going to be highly qualified because Black women at the end of the day are the most educated in the world.
So yeah, speaking of just a backlash on DEI and it honestly, it reminds me of the swing of the pendulum to conservatism and conservative culture being really in right now. Think of people like the Kardashians or Ariana Grande who have co-opted and copied Black culture to try to fit in, and now they're abandoning it because now it's not mainstream cool anymore.
I think somebody the other day I was talking to was, what culture do non-people of color really have, or basically white people have, without emulating and stealing from other cultures? Without taking away from Latina culture or Black culture or Asian culture. What do they have? What is their culture? And I'm not trying to say that white people don't have culture. I'm just saying that because we talked about this on the podcast before, what makes America so beautiful and wonderful is that there's so many different people here. And so our culture of America is just, a whole bunch of different types of people and beliefs and viewpoints and styles and skin tones and music and food, So everybody is sharing a little bit of somebody's, culture and it's supposed to be appreciating that. But is there beautiful people of color, from all over? What do they really have? And I'm not trying to be funny. What is, what I mean? It's get rid of DEI, get rid of diversity and equity and inclusion. So then what's left? Mm-hmm. I like vanilla ice cream, but I prefer to have some toppings. You know what I mean?
White supremacy culture hurts white people too, and is a large reason why different cultures that would be considered to be white, like Irish or Gaelic, which I know is kind of indigenous to Ireland, I think, or Icelandic or whatever. There are different cultures for different regions of people that are white,
right?
But so many white people have abandoned those cultures again because of white supremacy. So think of when people came to the United States to destroy it from England and Portugal. They were white in pigment for Portuguese, but in reality for people from England, and came over to the United States and they abandoned all of their cultural practices too. But white Americans don't have anything, because it's again that obsession with upholding white supremacy, and anything that makes you other, quote unquote, or different is rejected. So it's not white people, meaning white Americans, don't really have a culture, but our cultures that are white. You know what I mean? But they lost that because they were trying to trade it into being worthy of genocide and colonization.
To make it clear, I'm not saying that they don't have culture and without us, they wouldn't have anything, but there's so much that has been taken or borrowed, from people of color and then made to kind of like, oh, this is ours, For example, I've seen a lot of things trending on TikTok right now about braids, like white women with like box braids saying, Vikings had braids. So I'm not, no, this is not cultural appropriation. And it's like, at the end of the day, I don't care who puts braids in their hair. Like, that's your hair. And you know what I mean? Like, I personally don't take offense to it. But when others are like trying to explain, like, hey, like, this is copying a culture, and then the defense is Vikings had braids, that is not the type of braids that Vikings had. You know what I mean? They didn't have.
Oh, are you a Viking?
Right.
Like, is she a Viking? I don't think so. Sorry.
No, I mean, but even a person who has like there was a woman that came on who was like, this is my ancestry, or, Vikings. And she was like, even, first of all, their braids were not like this. And second of all, when they started braiding their hair, it was already after they had, they really did appropriate it because it was already seen somewhere else, So it wasn't like this was their original idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was, yes, to keep their hair out of their face, which is the purpose of braids. But the purpose of braids for amongst Black people, at least in the United States, it started with, they were putting in the routes to slave, to get out of slavery. It was like maps. So, or it was a way for us to, kind of like, that's where dreads come from, is our hair was dreadful and unkempt. So, it was brushed and braided to prevent us from being insulted, but, my ancestors from being insulted and, mocked or having their hair just be matted and unkempt because of that. So it's actually offensive to tell, for a Black person with dreadlocks to just be like, oh, you have dreads. It's like, no, they have dreadlocks because it's purposeful. It's not like just matted, unkempt hair. I had dreadlocks for 10 years and I put a lot of work and effort into my hair. It was not dirty. It was not matted and unkempt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
washed it regularly. I twisted it. I went to a professional. I took very great care of that, style. So it was not dreadful, unkempt hair.
Yeah, for sure. You said something that was interesting, which was like, I don't really take offense to it when white people wear braids. Honestly, as a non-Black person of color, I do take offense to it. Because I'm like every time I see a white person with dreadlocks, especially, it's like an instant like cringe in my body. Why are you doing that? Like, and I'm in so many like spiritual circles, so I see that more than I need to. And it like automatically makes me like distrust the person because it's like, what made you think that like this is a hairstyle for you? It's the same thing of like white women were using, I don't remember the name of the brand, but there was like some sort of product that had came out in Ulta or Target. This was like over the summer, and a bunch of white women were using it and their hair was falling out because it wasn't meant for white people. It was meant for Afro-textured hair. So the fact that like you're a Black woman and you're almost defending your use of dreadlocks and how you took care of them and how they were clean, and you shouldn't have to defend that.
Yeah.
And you think those white people are? They're not.
No, you're right. And I think when you pointed that out to me, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I'm centering whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
Because where I grew up, I always felt like I had to watch what I said when it was about white people. There's an experience that I had when I was in 8th grade. And I was talking to this boy in my class on the phone, and he was like, you talk like a white girl. And I was like, no, I don't. I don't talk. I was like, I talk like me. And I was really annoyed because this wasn't the first time somebody had said that to me growing up in like, suburbia, Colorado. I mean. And so I was like really offended. And so I was like, no, I do not talk like a white girl. How dare you? I don't talk like that. And I was just so offended. And he went to school and told a couple of the white girls that were like more popular. They were my friend in my friend group, that I was basically talking crap about them and saying like, I'm better than them and all this stuff. And all the white girls, because we were on teams at this school. So all the white girls on my team, which is like every girl, other than maybe 3 or 4, just stopped talking to me. They shut me out of 8th grade. And I was just by myself. I ate lunch by myself. Sat in the hallway and cried. It was really messed up. And so I guess maybe that's why I'm like, well, I don't want to say this, or, because anytime I said anything in these predominantly white spaces, I was like basically made to feel like I was offending. That's why it's so important for me to have to be a Black woman, because I wasn't not allowed, but it was uncomfortable to say that. And if I said anything against whiteness or white people, then I was a bad person.
Mm.
And I'm not, even if it was like, I don't want to be like that, or I'm not censoring that, or I don't want to sound like, I don't want you to call me, say that I sound like this, when I'm just like, I was taught to enunciate my words and take my time. And I grew up in Colorado. So there is a little bit of a Colorado accent. We say certain words. I saw somebody that said the other day, like, we say mountain, we don't say the T. It's weird, but I don't know. I just talk like I'm from Colorado. So that doesn't mean that I talk white or Black. I just talk like myself. And yeah, I don't know. Anytime I said anything against that or was offended, I ended up offending white people, women in particular.
I feel like you just made a whole circle, actually. Noticing that you were centering whiteness and then going back to notice why you do it, and what a traumatic experience. I'm so sorry. That just really sucks. And I understand why I would step on walk on
Yeah,
eggshells.
walk on eggshells.
Walk on eggshells to please like white people so they don't like oust you. So I totally understand that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, white people in particular, just get that. And I think a lot of that defensiveness comes from guilt and white fragility. I can always tell that a white person is a quote unquote good white person based on how they react to those kind of statements. If they're comfortable owning that they're white and talking about it, or even just if they're okay with me saying, I just can't with white people, and they don't take that personally, then I'm like, okay, I can trust you. Because, that's on white people, that they have to learn that when people of color are critiquing white people, it doesn't mean that we're critiquing you specifically, unless you did something fucked up, in which case we are. But like, we're talking about like a systemic societal issue that white people emulate, And so if you take that personally, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. You need to work through that. I think, yeah, why aren't you doing the work to not let this offend you? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think I mentioned this to you before, but like, it irks me when people can just navigate the world and not think about how their privilege, as white women or white men, are impacting, other people, or how their privilege allows them to not have to care about what's happening to others. And then they're like, well, I have a Black friend. And it's like, so you probably don't even treat them with, the kindness and respect they deserve. If you can count how many Black friends you have, then maybe you should reevaluate your life. I don't know.
And like, what's that friendship? Like, is that a real friendship, or are you using that friendship so you can prove that you're not racist? Like,
I could see that. Well, I mean, wasn't that kind of the purpose of behind like some companies, unrolling some DEI, is to be like, we're not racist, like we stand by this, but like some of that was performative. And I think that's why it was so easy for some of them to roll it back, because it was performative. It was like jumping on a bandwagon, where it's like everybody's doing this, I got to do this too, so our company stands out, or people don't not shop at our company.
Yeah, it was like the
whatever it is, so
yeah, like the pandemic, like George Floyd was murdered, and all of a sudden we care about Black people, so we're gonna have DEI at Target. Target is a great example of that, because they were huge in the like pro Black Lives Matter, we stand with our people, blah blah blah, and all that shit they did for Pride too. And then now they're just like, nah, we're good.
Well, quickly. I think that's like, I see that question a lot on Instagram threads, is like, but why boycott Target? Like, this Walmart did this, and like, no. And I'm just like, but Walmart never pretended that they were something they weren't.
Exactly.
That's the difference. Target was like, I'm with you, we hold your hand. No, you lie, Target, you lie. And you made us think that you were for us, and we felt like you were a safe place. And literally the second that you were threatened, that you could, and it was really like, he was like, I'm going to investigate if you are doing this under the guise of like, equity and diversity. And they were like, okay, no, we're not doing it. It's like, wow, that was quick. All right. I see it. I see you, Target. I see you. You're expensive anyway, so I need to cut back. So I'm good. I'm not going to Target.
I'm just gonna say, to me, that's another thing with Walmart is like, yeah, well, I'm gonna save $20.
They never fronted and never pretended that they were
No,
something they weren't.
you've always been a fucked up company. They're fucked up.
We knew that.
Yeah, we knew that.
They showed us who they were, and we decided we want to do with that. You know what I
No,
mean?
true.
Target was like, no, I'm gonna smile on your face, but really, I'm not real. And that's what's ugly. So Target or whoever, or if you're listening, you guys suck for that. Just saying.
They do.
And I used to love Target.
Same. Girl, same. I've already saved money. Like just from not even, and I have gone twice since they rolled their program back, and I do feel guilty about that. So I just have to admit that. But I was going every day. Like every single day. I was going to Target. So twice isn't that bad. But
because of the convenience, they had the pickup and it was just easy. You could do everything from your phone. And so like I did that, but I will shop at Walgreens, Costco, Walmart. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine.
NAACP just put out a list of where to shop.
Oh, cool. We have to put that in our show notes then.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
All right.
So, listeners out there, Nikki and I are not only just very good friends, but we also have a lot in common. And one of those things is we're really into tarot.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Nikki? Yeah.
Yeah, we love it.
We both have our tarot cards with us, and we were hoping that we could do like a little reading with each of our card decks. And kind of like try to connect them to our identities. What do you think, Nikki? Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, I think that sounds awesome.
All right. So these are my cards.
Love.
I have this purple bag. It was given to me when I was pregnant with Addie. And all these like essential oils and like a little like fertility, like, statue to focus on while giving birth. I didn't give birth. I had a C-section, but a dear friend of mine who I hope is listening gave me this bag. It's purple, one of my favorite colors. But I keep my cards in here. In my card deck is actually an oceanic deck.
Ooh.
Because I'm a mermaid or a fish, whatever you want to call me. Pisces. I'm a Pisces. I definitely feel like, if there was another life, I could totally see myself being a mermaid. Okay. These cards, I had a friend at the time was like, I want to get you cards for your birthday, but you have to pick them out. So we went to Tatter Cover Bookstore here in Denver, and they were behind like this little like glass enclosure. And even though I saw the glass enclosure when I walked up to the cards, I saw the cards sitting there, these oceanic tarot cards, and I just like immediately grabbed them. Like they just like jumped out at me. But remember, there's a glass wall there. So I like punched the glass. Okay. The person that was supposed to be helping, like the customer service person was supposed to be helping us was like, I gotta open it. And then they were like, do you want to look at any others? I was like, no, I just want those. Like I didn't see any other cards. I just saw these. They lived like that at me. So I guess they were meant for me. So I keep them in this bag along with some crystals and some wish paper for intentions.
Love.
Kinds of little goodies in here. And so when I'm like really ready to do a card reading, I, take out a crystal or two, and then I just sit quietly and breathe, focus, and touch all my cards and put my energy into them. And then I start reading. Nikki, what do you do when you're about to read your cards?
So like I take a stick of incense and I burn it. I'm actually sitting in my like metaphysical spiritual babe den right now. So I can show you and I can describe to the readers what's happening, or the listeners. But behind me is my altar. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, I see. I love it. I love the Colorado.
Yeah, that's kind of random, but I have a picture of my grandfather. I have Tara, the Buddhist goddess. I have some crystals out and bay leaves and a cauldron. And then behind me, these are my decks that I have, some tarot and oracle decks. I have a sound bowl. And then my favorite deck, which I'm going to use today, is the Secrets of Paradise tarot deck.
Yes.
And it's by Leticia Ferrer Rivera, and it is inspired by Caribbean and Latin American culture and mysticism. So it represents all the different Latin American cultures. So there's and Caribbean. So there's like Haitian representation, Dominican, Puerto Rican, lots of Taino, which I'm a very small percentage Taino. So I really like working with this deck as a form of connecting with my ancestors. And it's interesting that you said the imagery with the water because there's a lot of that in here too. And in the bottom of the deck, there's like a beach scene with like a walrus, and there's just a lot of water involved in that. So I think that that's cute. But I basically do the same thing that you do. So I sit down. I usually will do essentially. I'm staging my house, but I'm using incense. So I'll do that.
Mhm.
Sometimes I put on, there's this one video on YouTube that I've been listening to for so long. My students used to make fun of me for it. But it's called Tibetan Healing Sounds on YouTube, and it's a singing bowl. It's just beautiful. Oh my God, I love it. So search that up, listeners. And so sometimes I'll put that on. I believe strongly in the healing and cleaning power of music, and frequencies that you can hear, auditory healing. So yeah, I'll do that. And then I take 3 deep cleansing breaths. And I always start by saying, for the good of all and harm to none, I welcome spirit into the space, my ancestors. I almost don't even want to go through it because I want to just do it for us right now.
Okay.
If we're ready to do a read.
Yeah. Um,
For now, we're each going to pull one card for you all out there and see if one of these or both of these messages resonate with you. And we'll each read our description to you of the card we pull. And in the poll, you can select which card you resonated with.
that's a good idea. Okay. Miss Nikki, you have the honors to go first.
All right. So if you're at home, and to Amber, and to all our listeners, go ahead and close your eyes. We're going to take a deep breath in and hold. Go ahead and release that breath. We're going to repeat that process twice more. Inhale in, hold, and one last time. And wonderful. For the good of all and harm to none, we welcome spirit into this space, and we welcome our ancestors into this space, and we welcome any positive light energy that would like to share messages with us and our listeners into this space. Okay,
Thank you.
so that's it. So we're going to shuffle some cards. What comes out? What message do you have for our listeners today? So I pulled the death card.
The death card? Okay.
And I want to see which one you pulled. What do you pull?
I pulled the strength and stability card.
Strength and stability. Ooh, he looks like a big, strong man.
I know.
I like him. That's
Just a little
beautiful.
bro. See, maybe this is for you. This is gonna be your next.
It's my husband, a mermaid. Yes.
Yeah, it's so strong and
I love.
warrior like. Yeah. All right, tell us about this death card.
Right. So yeah, so this is the death card, and maybe there's a way we can list a picture of the, I don't know, just so that people can see it. Okay, so I'm just gonna read it from the book. This card is about a transition and signifies big and important change in life. It is a sign to trust what is coming next, to have faith, and to be flexible. This card can trigger some fear, but note that if the person overcomes their fears and allows the transformation process to take place, the results will be as sweet as the guayaba fruit. This card is a sign to meditate on what no longer serves you. Something is coming to an end, and it is a transition into new possibility, a new door opening for you. Focused on walking towards that door, pass through it, and do not look back. Our lives can transform for the better if we trust the process. And I do think there's a message as well in the description of the card, so I am going to read that. There's some Spanish words here that I'm not familiar with, so don't judge me, listeners, but I am going to honor my ancestors by trying to pronounce them. It says, this card represents the legend of the death of Spanish conquistador Diego Salcedo at the hands of Taínos in the Rio Grande in 1511. His death proved to be a pivotal moment for Taínos, after which they rebelled against the Spaniards. The semi-deity of, I don't know what this is, but it's a bat, a sweet bat, who guides souls to the underworld, is painted as a petroglyph on the rock, and the bat is waiting for Diego's soul so it can guide him too.
Wow.
There's some pretty intense imagery, and if you look at the card itself, you can kind of see Tainos were indigenous to. I'm actually part to a very small percentage of Taino, but they were indigenous to the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and I'm missing something else, but another location. And so these two men right here are Taino, and then this is the conquistador that they're luring to his death.
Nice. I love that. That card is wonderful. I don't even think, sometimes you see death cards and I was surprised, but I wasn't like, I might have let out a gasp, but it wasn't. It was more for like, ooh, because I immediately know that death doesn't mean death.
Yeah.
Well, death means change and new life and new, just a newness. In order for new things to come about, something has to die, and so it's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, like the world is going to be over, but maybe the world does need to kind of, there needs to be a death for something new to come about. And I think that's appropriate for the times.
Yes, with death comes rebirth.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. With death comes rebirth. Okay. So, boom. All right. My card is the 11, actually, in the tarot. It's 11th card in the tarot. And today is March 11th. Thought I'd note that,
I didn't know I said.
I was like, oh, I looked at my watch and I was like, it's the 11th. That's awesome. So, the card 11 is strength. So in the card, a merman is holding a fishing net full of thrashing fish. Rather than rip the net apart to free them immediately, he holds his position, which takes strength. He controls the creatures released into the ocean, understanding their need for freedom while protecting himself so he is not overpowered or harmed by them. The meaning behind this card is stability. This card shows patience in the face of conflict, you standing your ground rather than being overwhelmed. What opposes you is lower than you are. This may be your own fear, guilt, or other emotions that shake your confidence, or a person who is acting in an unreasonable way by projecting these emotions onto you. Having compassion while keeping your personal boundaries strong and refusing to be taken advantage of shows the strength of your character. An additional meaning of the card is literally, physical strength, a return to vitality. Here's the advice. Stand firm, be calm, and take the higher moral ground. This situation is a test of your character. You are resilient and patient enough to withstand ongoing challenges without panic or compromise that doesn't feel right. Some of the key words for this card are courage, patience, endurance, risk, balance, opposition, and vitality, I guess. So that card and your card resonate with me in the times that we're currently living in.
Same. That's what I was thinking of as you were talking. Is I was like, wow, what a connection! Because it's not like the strength part is like you don't give up on your convictions and your moral ground to create a new experience and to die. Like you don't like kill yourself,
right?
And die. You die from like you keep fighting while you're dying. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like that's kind of a crazy analogy or metaphor, but like, it's you're not going down without a fight.
Right. And also like, don't let everything get you fired up. You know what I mean? Know when to fight is what I'm getting from this stability card. It's like your strength is in not letting everything get to you. Your strength is in like doing things in a stable way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yes, everything that I'm seeing in the news and in social media, it can be upsetting. There's a lot of things that are upsetting. But if I went out and like lashed out and had lockdowns over it or like, cussed everybody out or was like, I hate everybody, that's not going to serve me.
Mm-hmm.
But I can carry this load with strength and stability and know when is the right time to address these angry feelings. My cousin, who we had on our podcast recently, posted about, them ripping up the Black Lives Matter sign in the road in Washington, D.C. And he was like, I think it was like he just reposted like the video of it, but it was like, there's a hashtag that was like, we don't matter. And I was like, no, that is not going to get me fired up. That is not you know what I mean? Like, that's not going to like get me to a point where I need to like, let this, devastate me, or I'm not going to like give into rage bait. They're
Yeah.
trying to, while they're simultaneously taking away things, get us worked up. They want us out in the streets. They want us angry and protesting. They want us to get, now, when I say they, I'm talking about conservative, ultra Trump, supporters, MAGA people. They want people of color to be out in the streets just being like, oh my gosh, no, we're not going to give you that. I'm not going to give you that satisfaction because there's strength in my stability.
Absolutely. And they want you to get upset so that they can hurt you. I mean, see what they did to the pro-Palestinian student at Columbia University. They're revoking his green card. They're trying to revoke his green card and deport him. Like, they want you to, and he wasn't even acting up. He was just at a protest. Like, but they want you to act up so that they can say that that's the reason why, they're going to deport you. I mean, they want to keep you in a situation where you're going to react in a way that they can act martial law on you. And so I think you have a solid point about strength is like slow and steady wins the race.
Right.
And that's something I've been trying to think about a lot. We went to the Women's March back in January, and we went as a school. And I remember when I was prepping the kids for it, I was being so, like, I had us there so early. Like, I was being really dramatic because I was picturing it to be like it was in 2016, like 1 million people. And there weren't that many. And I was talking about that, and a colleague looked over at me, and he's been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. And he was like, well, you have to think of abolitionists. Abolition lasted 400 years. Think of people who went to demonstrations, essentially, in the name of abolishing slavery, and then went their entire life without seeing slavery be abolished. But does that mean that their work didn't matter? Absolutely not. Their work was necessary.
Yeah.
We might not see the direct benefit of the activism that we're doing now, but slow and steady wins the race. That's, continued effort and sustainable effort is what's going to lead to change. And I think that's why it's so important to pick my biggest advice to people. And I say this to students a lot, and I'm saying this to you all on the podcast and to you, Amber, is you have to pick what it is that you're going to fight for every single day. And it's not that you ignore everything else. You care about everything else. You stay informed. But if you try to give every single issue your full 100% and let it trigger you and let it emote you, you're not going to accomplish anything.
Right.
Like, you kind of have to choose your thing, like whether it's going to demonstrations or organizing or teaching or leading or having small conversations with racist family members. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, like, but you pick your thing that's sustainable and can create that difference and create that impact and go for it. Like, and that's strength. That's what you just said. That's slow, sustained effort towards a goal.
Right.
Versus like burning out and losing your mind.
Because that's not going to get us anywhere. I think for me, and I've said this on, an episode before, but I'm resting. I am trying, and it's not as easy as it's, you can say. I'm passionate about a lot of things that are happening in the world, but I'm also trying to not let it consume me to the point, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I just literally looked up at the corner of my eye, and I have on my like little bulletin board, rest is resistance, fill my own cup, and remember that I'm speaking to my inner child, so like I'm trying to set an example for children of color by saying like, there's a way that you can be angry. There's a way that you can be mindful and like first and foremost, take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to, I want to be so angry about what's going on, but I'm like resharing messages and I'm like trying to like educate people. But then it's like, at the same time, like if I don't, if that doesn't like serve me in that moment, like I'm like, okay, maybe this is my note to like rest and be mindful. And then like, try a different angle or, I'm not like, I think especially like being a Black woman, like it's a big thing about like, everybody's like, oh, you're so strong. You're so strong. And like, I remember people would say that to you and I was like a single mom. And I was like, yeah, but I'm like exhausted. And this is like really hard work. And I don't want to be strong. I want to be soft. And I want to like sit and cry. I want someone to help me. Or I want support. So being strong for me, like having to be strong for so long, like I'm okay with being soft and mindful and letting things come to me when they need to. Like I don't necessarily feel like I have to fight every single day. I don't want to do that every single day. I'm tired, but I will always stand up, for what's right. And I will speak out when I need to, but I'm also not going to like give people, like, I don't want my words to fall on deaf ears either. So it's like, sometimes I just need to be quiet. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's so much in what you just said it's extremely valid, and I think will resonate with a lot of people. There's like a trend on social media where it's like soft Black girl life. I love that. Like, it's so important to just like intentionally take it easy, and like that's that stupid like strong independent Black woman stereotype thing. It's just not, it's not fair, and like you deserve a soft life.
Yeah.
In terms of like falling on deaf ears, like I could totally resonate with that too. Like, so much of justice work is choosing your battles, because is what I'm gonna say actually going to change this person's mind? And there's like a 50% chance, but if you know the person, especially, and you know that they're not going to listen, like, I don't choose battles with my dad. I know how he feels about a lot of things, and we disagree. And like, when it comes to specific situations where I feel like I have to protect someone else, like, I will do it. But when it comes to like stupid stuff, like, he thinks that reverse racism is a thing, and that's a huge issue. And like, after talking to him about it like 6 times, I'm like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I know that he's not going to change his mind. And like, if he wasn't my dad, like, I would not talk to him at all.
Right. I mean, protecting our peace that takes strength. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could just keep trying to like talk until you're blue in the face and tell your dad like over and over and over. Um, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's exhausting. If it's just going to fall on deaf ears, if it's really not going to get through, it's like, why don't I spend my time and energy talking and sharing my ideas and my beliefs with people that are either going to like want to hear and want to change their behaviors, or people that like have like-minded ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I've been so like defensive about since I began doing this, like doing justice work as my job, like as a DEI director, is every time people have said for the last 3 years, for a lot of different things, what about the pushback? What about the pushback? What if you have angry parents? Or what about the white people? Or what about the pushback? And it got to a certain point where I'm like, I'm no longer thinking about the damn pushback. If you really have a problem with the fact that I want to read this damn Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag book, like, I don't have anything to say to you. Like, instead of fighting you on the fact that I should be able to read this book to kids about the gay flag, like, I'm going to turn that attention to making sure that that's the best damn lesson that these kids have ever
That's
experienced.
right.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's like, we have to do that within our communities too, instead of constantly like trying to educate white people, trying to convince them, trying to like motivate them. It's like, okay, enough. I'm going to turn to my community now. Like, and that's why I think solidarity within our communities of color is so important too. Cause it's like, we can have each other. Like, we don't, but we should. And we should have each other's back, because like, if we all came together, like all Black and brown people, if we came together, like, we'd be unstoppable.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying. I want to focus my time and energy on collectively standing with Black and brown people. You know
yes.
what I mean? Like, and then the white people that want to join our ride, come on.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
Jordan.
like I'm not gonna like be exclusionary, because that's also doing what others would be doing anyway. So like, no, you want to come on this ride, come on. But I really just want to stand with the Black and brown people, Black and brown and indigenous people, because it's like we are stronger together. And I think that there's so much aimed at dividing us, keeping us divided, because there's strength in our numbers, like inside of the world. Like, I think I've seen, like, as a kid's show, the movie Bug's Life, where like the ants come together and
Oh,
they
yeah.
actually empower their But I'm like, okay, Disney, for your like, kind of like white supremacy
Mhm.
movie, like there's so like the ants are like the like underdog. They're there's a lot of them, but they're small. And if they're divided and they're not working together, then obviously the grasshoppers can overpower them. But if they come together, they can do anything. And that's what we can do.
Absolutely. And I think, listeners, we're going to leave you with that to sit on it and to think about how we can leverage our collective action. And like, if you're listening to the mixtapes, you have some sort of interest in racial justice. Like, I don't know why you would listen to us if you didn't. Like, so that's something that you all have in common with each other, and then you have in common with us. And so that commonality is what's going to get us through the next 4 years, but also what's to come after that. So yeah, I love doing this work with you, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, we are Nikki and Amber. We are the co-hosts of the mixtapes. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can like, follow, and subscribe. Please share freely. And we will be posting in our description a link to a Google form if you or someone you know is biracial or mixed race or in an interracial relationship. We would love to have you on the podcast. So check us out, and we love you. Peace and
Yeah.
love.
Bye.